Hey, how's it going? My name is Jonathan League. I am a family therapist. I am an addictions counselor, and I'm just checking in live. I want to go over a few topics tonight about addiction, and just kind of open it up Q&A, see who shows up, and let's talk about it. But I'm really want to talk because there is something that's been coming up multiple times this week, and it's primarily been with parents with adult children, and they have been asking me about about their young adult and why they are struggling so much with addiction. And more specifically, they're saying my my child, my young adult child, is repeating the same behavior. Right? They're addicted either to the internet, pornography, chemicals, whatever it is, but they keep doing it over and over and over, and they're experiencing consequences. It's not helping them out. Life is getting worse because of this. Why do they continue to use? Why do they continue with this addiction? And so that is in general what I wanted to talk about, but we'll give a little bit of time for if anyone wants to join us and talk any questions about addiction, recovery, and that process. But primarily tonight, I was interested in talking about parents with young adult children who are kind of stuck, right? Stuck in life, stuck in their current situation, and they're struggling. And especially when there's some sort of addictive behavior, which often is the case, really often is the case when someone is struggling, just kind of failure to launch, stuck in their life. There's usually some sort of addiction involved, definitely some sort of avoidance and escapism. And that typically is involving addiction. So that's what I want to talk about tonight, but I'm open for anything that anyone wants to talk about within reason, within the topic of addiction and relationships. Because here's the deal: people get stuck. They get stuck inside of themselves, right? They lose focus, they lose direction, they lose their purpose and confidence, and they don't know what to do. And families, the loved ones, the people around them get stuck too. They don't know how to help. They don't know how to connect. And that's a lot of what I do. That's a lot of what I do every day as I help people get unstuck. I help families and relationships get unstuck and understanding what is going on in their lives. So let me just dig into that question. And if I get interrupted with some better questions, I'll go with that. But this is what I wanted to talk about. So the question that I've been getting from a lot of loved ones is, particularly with their adult children, they're clearly addicted to something, right? It's a substance, it's a behavior, it's the internet. They're they just retreat to that over and over and over, and it's not helping them. In fact, it's hurting them. It's causing more problems in their life because of what they're doing. But they keep doing it. They promise they're going to stop. They say they're going to stop. They say they got a different plan, but they keep doing the same thing over and over. Why does that happen? Why do they keep doing that? So let's think about this. Uh, what these parents are telling me is kind of the essence of addiction. Someone who is repeating a behavior over and over when it's not helping them anymore. In fact, it's hurting them. They have consequences because of it. And that's how a lot of people think about addiction, right? You're screwing up your life, you're screwing up your relationships. Why do you keep doing this? Well, I want to break that down a little bit as to why that happens. And there's really two categories that we can put this into when it comes to the reasons people are continuing to engage in an addictive behavior. One of them is because of really it's escapism, it's avoidance. It's what we call a psychological addiction. And you can think of it this way: in this person's life, they are experiencing pain, right? There is something that is giving them extreme anxiety, fear, depression. They are overwhelmed, right? Whatever is going on, and it makes sense. All of us have been there, right? You have been there. I've been there. Something is so overwhelming in our life, we don't want to deal with it. We're running from it. We don't want to face it, and then we go to something that is um, that is a relief, right? We can go to our phone or we go to a substance, and that's what they're doing. They're escaping to an extreme. But the problem is, it doesn't fix the problem. It makes it worse. When you avoid what's going on, it tends to increase, and then it's that whole cycle, right? The more I avoid, the worse my problems get. The more angry people get at me, the more things pile up, and the more I need to avoid it and escape it. And it makes sense from that level why they're doing it initially, but ultimately it doesn't work. So it's like this psychological dependency that forms. And yeah, and a lot of people fall into that category. Now, there's another category that I want to cover, which is more about biology, right? It's a biological. We call this a physical dependency that develops. And I want to break this one down as well. Um, if you think about food, right? If if eating was not pleasurable, our species would have died out years ago, right? Uh, And it's not just that it's pleasurable, right? It solves a problem, right? When we're hungry, we have pain, right? We have hunger pains, right? Our body is malnourished if we go long enough and it hurts and our body's not functioning. It's a very unpleasant state to be in. And when we eat, it resolves that, right? And not only that, we experience euphoria. And the more hungry, the more hunger pain we're in, the more eating feels amazing, right? Because it's releasing all these chemicals in our brain, especially dopamine, a feel good chemical, right? And so in our primal brain, we have been hardwired. We don't have to think about it, right? We experience this pain and then we experience this euphoria when we eat. And our brain knows, it naturally knows that that's survival, right? We need to eat for survival. Same thing for sex, right? If uh, if sex was not pleasurable, and if it did not solve a problem of loneliness and disconnection and all these other things, right? If it wasn't pleasurable, uh, our species would have died out a long time ago, right? It's extremely pleasurable. I mean, think how much it's used in marketing and advertising, and because it's such a powerful motivator, and that is kind of hardwired into our brain, right? It's this primal response. Now, what happens in our brain if a similar scenario, a similar cycle is created? So think about the psychological, emotional pain that someone can be in, right? We talk about that psychological dependency that happens, right? They're in such pain. They're overwhelmed. They're full of anxiety. They're full of fear. Life is hard and it is painful. And then on the other hand, there's this behavior, this thing that you can do or this substance that you can take that not only ends the pain temporarily, but creates a sense of euphoria, right? It's a complete dopamine rush, right? You've artificially but actually created the same type of primal cycle that happens with food. I'm in hunger pain, my body's wasting away. Now I have this amazing feeling of euphoria when I eat, right? I'm in psychological pain, full of anxiety, overwhelmed with life, don't know how to handle it. I want to escape it. And not only am I avoiding it, I have something that's creating this amazing experience of just like euphoria, right? Um, the brain starts to learn. It starts to treat whatever that cycle is, right? That addictive cycle as necessary for survival. right? The brain doesn't know a difference, right? We're talking about primal brain, not logical brain, but primal brain. It's like, okay, we're in pain, we do this, and it feels amazing. And when we do that over and over and over, the brain's like, we need this to survive, right? That this is beyond anything logical. This is necessary. And that's how the primal brain thinks about it. And so people get pulled into that addiction, and the brain has basically hardwired and learned that that's what we do. And so that is what we call the physical dependency that people develop. But look at it this way. um, when someone just has that psychological cycle, right, of psychological dependency, that emotional dependency on an addictive substance, when the stressor, the thing that's overwhelming them, is removed, uh, the urge, the need to participate in the addictive behavior subsides a lot, right? Sometimes completely, not always completely, but quite a bit, right? It goes down. And so that's a lot of the goal in those type of situations. Let's calm down whatever is overwhelming you. Let's figure out how to handle it, and then you have less need to escape and avoid. But once it has become a biological process, right? They have become physically dependent upon it. You can remove the psychological factor, the thing that's overwhelming them, and the the addictive behavior will often continue because it's hardwired into their brain. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, right? That's what a lot of parents with adult children don't understand. And so what they do is they try to have these logical conversations with their loved one. And it's a promise to quit, it's a plan to quit or to change their behavior or to do something different, but they continue to do the same thing over and over. And many times they really do want to change, but they don't know how, because it's just like every day, every moment, it's like, this is what we do. This is what we need to do. And so that process continues. And the whole reason I'm pointing this out is I want to help some people have some better discussions, some better approaches, rather than repeat the same pattern over and over, where we're talking logical. And here is a good way of thinking about it. When someone's brain has been hardwired with an addiction, right? They are in that process that I just described, where it just like becomes a primal need, and it's no more about logic. It's now just what they do. They need a new experience. A lot of times we say they need their brain rewired, right? We need to sever the connections but of addiction, the way the brain processes and thinks about that behavior or that substance, and we need to create a new experience. We basically need a period of time to go by where they can prove to their brain, you don't need this anymore, this behavior, this substance, this thing, right? So they go a couple of days and they're able to survive, they're able to make it, they're able to go a couple weeks, a couple months, and they experience life. And when you put the two of them together, right, you can go through life without engaging in that behavior, and you survive. You're okay. And you're equipped to handle what is psychologically overwhelming you, right? The anxiety, the fear, the wounds, the trauma, the relationships, the things that change. When both of those happen, you can live life, uh, and feel like you have a sense uh, of control, of agency, of confidence, right? And you're not going to those unhealthy patterns and mechanisms that creates a new experience. That is what we're going for. So people ask about, well, do I need to go to rehab? Not necessarily, but rehabs, good ones, are really structured to help create that experience and teach you better coping mechanisms and build relationships. That's the idea, but it doesn't have to be at rehab. That can be created within a home when people are having the right conversations, when when parents, when loved ones can come together and talk about one, what's going on, like that process of addiction, like how their brain's been rewired, how they're running from their problems, and all that, and how they need to have a change in their structure and their lifestyle, and also a real discussion about what is happening in their life. Right? What is really going on? What's really going on in the relationship? What's really going on in this person's in this life, and then how they are handling. So many times in relationships and in um, just in families, they don't know how to talk about what's really going on. It breaks down, it falls apart, it ends in another argument or disconnection. And that pattern repeats and repeats and repeats. Right? And the families, they don't know how to connect. And so that's a lot of what I teach and what I encourage you to do is learn how to have those healthier conversations about what's really going on. And that's where I encourage you, for those of you who are watching this at whatever point, replay or whatever, I have a whole library of videos on YouTube that just straight up, this is what you need to know about addiction, about relationships, and have helped people. And you can see a lot of the comments on those videos and people who are sharing what has helped them or their experience as well. So that is why I wanted to jump on here and just talk about that and see if we get any engagement. If anyone had any questions about their situation, right? Did you agree with what I was saying? Did you disagree? Did is that your story? Does it sound similar? Are there things about what I was talking about that hit with you? Or maybe you have other questions. So um, that's what I want to know. I would love to get your comments. I would love to hear your experience because that also helps me in when I'm making a video or I get on live or do this, that kind of direct the conversation. So that was my thoughts for tonight, and I'm gonna just stay on here just a little bit longer and interact with anyone who's gonna show up. Um, and for some reason, I cannot see. Normally, I can see names and people. I must have clicked on a different setting because I can see some people are watching, but I can't see who they are. So, but anyone, you're welcome if you have a question or something you'd like to share. And again, um, even on replay, any of those questions. Okay. And we are done. I am going to cut this off and I will talk to you later. Take care.